I remember I was scared. That's the only word I really have to define it. I was scared. I kind of felt like I invested 10 years of my life into a career and I was walking away from that and having to start fresh, basically.
Welcome back to Pest Radio, the podcast where we talk with leaders shaping the future of the pest control and wildlife industries, from business and growth to marketing, mindset, and the real stories behind the people in this field. I'm Faye Cebioglu from Digital Karma, a digital marketing agency helping pest control and home service companies grow through SEO, Google Ads, websites, automation, and AI-driven marketing strategies. Our mission is simple: help good companies grow with smart, honest, and trackable marketing. Today's guest is Alyssia Zimmaro, Operations Coordinator at Aardwork Pest Management in Philadelphia. Alyssia's journey into pest control is anything but traditional. She spent over a decade in education as a teacher and also instructional leader before transitioning into her family's pest control business, where she now leads operations, builds systems, and drives efficiency across the company. She's also preparing to take over ownership in the near future and was recognized as a 2025 recipient of the PWIPM Professional Empowerment Grant, a program that supports women advancing their careers in pest management. Her story is about leadership, transition, and stepping into a role even when the path isn't clear from the beginning. Alyssia, welcome to the show. I'm really glad we could make this happen.
Hi, Faye. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here and share my story.
All right. I know a little bit about your journey, but I would love for you to share it with our listeners because it's not a typical path into pest control. So, can you take us back? How did your journey start in education and what did that chapter of your life look like?
Sure, absolutely. So I did start my career in education. That was after earning a degree in secondary education, where I specialized in mathematics from Holy Family University, which is located in Philadelphia. I never really made it far from home. We grew up in Philadelphia. That's where Aardvark's located. That's where I went to college. So I always stayed pretty close. I graduated there in 2011, and I began teaching at a charter school located in the Kensington section of Philadelphia right after graduation. The Kensington section of Philadelphia is a very under-resourced population. I genuinely loved being in the classroom. I loved being in Kensington. I loved being part of their community. It was really, really rewarding work. After about 6 years in the classroom, I actually was promoted to a leadership role where my title was Senior Lead Educator. In that position, I kind of shifted from teaching students to more developing the teachers. I kind of led professional development sessions. I coached teachers one-on-one, and then I supported them in their classroom, helping them redefine their craft and become more effective in the classroom. I think that part of my education journey really kind of helped
So, we can say
shape.
you were an outliner also as a teacher.
Yes, there you go. There you go. Perfect. I was just saying, kind of helped me shape where I am now, that part of my career.
So, what made you decide to transition into the pest control industry and join your family business? And I'm really curious, after graduating, why did you choose education instead of going directly into your father's company? And what changed later that led you to make that transition?
A very interesting question. I'm going to answer the second part first. I remember being like 18, 19 years old and really kind of being like, I'm going to do my own thing. I don't need any of my parents to, tell me what to do, or I don't need to follow in their footsteps. So I really want to make a name for myself. So I feel like that's kind of why I pushed aardvark and pest control to the side a little bit. Now I wish I could go back in time and talk to that 18-year-old girl and tell her, hey, you really don't need to be so stubborn and make that choice. However, I do think the path that I chose, the 10 years that I spent teaching and in education, really did help form the woman I am today. It was a really tough choice to actually leave the classroom. I got to a point where I had 3 children and I had a hard time finding a work-life
Balance.
and balance. Yeah, for sure. And I really have to shout out educators who do that because I was unable to. I know I got to a point where I was like, I need more flexibility. I need to be able to be more available for my students, for my children. And it kind of just worked out like perfectly. My brother was kind of stepping away from pest control, and my dad was at a point where he was like, am I going to sell, or do I have a child or a family member interested in taking over? So it really just, it lined up perfectly. And I know I really am fortunate to have that opportunity. There's not many people who can say like, I'm just going to walk away from my career and have this other opportunity over here. So I'm very grateful for the opportunity that my dad provided for me.
Right. And you spent years in education, and at some point the chapter came to an end. And can you share what the transition felt like for you personally?
Yeah, I remember I was scared. Like, that's the only word I really have to define it. I was scared. I kind of felt like I invested 10 years of my life into a career, and I was walking away from that and having to like start fresh, basically. I kind of struggled with my identity because I felt like teaching was such a part of me. It was like in my core. I love teaching. So stepping away definitely did come with a lot of uncertainty. And I wasn't sure what the next chapter would look like. Would I enjoy being in pest control? Would I like working with my dad in this small family business? But then again, like I said, deep down, I knew I needed a change. And now that I'm, 5 years past that change and the decision I made, I can say with full confidence that I am happy that I made the choice that I made.
So, what was the biggest challenge when stepping into a family business, especially as a woman and as the next generation leader, daughter of the company owner?
I think one of the biggest challenges was stepping into a well-established business. A lot of the technicians that work for my dad have been here for a long time. They've been with him for almost the entire existence of Aardwork. So I feel like I kind of had to earn respect the team, but also like trying to find my voice as a leader.
Were you feeling
Also
underestimated at
a
times?
little, yeah, a little underestimated. I know it's a very male-dominated industry, so as a younger woman, that added an extra layer, and then being the boss's daughter, I feel like that added another layer. So just navigating all of those dynamics kind of felt like the biggest challenge. I do think that I realized over time anyway, not at first, I didn't really need to prove myself. Like, no one was expecting me to come in and like change the world. I do think what was important is that they saw that I kept showing up, right? And I kept being consistent and fair. And eventually everything settled. And I think now if you talk to my team, they kind of would be like, what was life before Alyssia was there? So
Uh-huh. So, at what point did you feel like, okay, I have earned my seat at the table, or do you still have, doubts about it? Do you feel like this imposter syndrome?
that's a good question. Like, I think I can view that in two different ways because the pest industry itself, like as a whole, is so welcoming. I never ever felt like at any pest NPMA events anyway, Pest World or Legislative Day, I never felt like I needed to earn a seat. I felt
Mhm.
like it was so welcoming. It was like, here's a seat. If you want to be here and you want to learn and you want to put the work in, you're more than welcome here. So it wasn't necessarily within the industry. I think it was more within like my company. Also, like stories I was telling myself, right? Oh, I don't know anything about this. I don't know if I deserve to be in this role. And like I kind of mentioned, it wasn't necessarily like a one thing that happened that made me feel like, oh, I really earned my seat. It was gradually over time. And if I'm being honest, it still feels that way. Like I still feel like I need to show up. I need to be fair. I need to be consistent. I need to have clear expectations for my team. And with that, I feel like not only do I earn a seat at the table, I actually have a table for my
Mhm.
employees to feel welcome at.
You come from a very structured, data-driven background, so you're a mathematician. How do you apply that to pest control operations today? Like, do you have a specific system or process you have already
Yes.
improved that had a real impact on the business?
Yeah, so data really was like the driving force when I was an educator, whether I was looking at like student numbers or even teacher evaluations. Those kinds of data points were how I adjusted my instruction. And I feel the same, although different, similar in this industry, right? So there are different data points I can look at to provide feedback to my technicians. There's different data points I can look at to decide whether I want to try to look for more work and increase our sales. I feel like most growth happens when you have solid numbers behind it, right?
I hear
More
you.
specific.
I'm an
More
engineer, so I'm so addicted to numbers.
right. So like more specifically, like if I'm analyzing like callback rates or, service frequencies of certain accounts with the technician, usually I sit down and I pull the technician in and we could talk about like, okay, let's look at these numbers. Why were there so many callbacks? Let's find the problem and then adjust our IPM program so that we see less callbacks next month from this account. So data really is such an important tool for growth in a pest control company.
Okay. And from your perspective, what are the most pest control companies doing inefficiently, when it comes to operations?
So I have to be honest, I really only want to talk from my experience, but it's kind of ties back to what we were just talking about. It's the lack of data, right? It's people just make impulse decision. They don't really know why they're changing this procedure or they don't know why they're changing this protocol or updating this system. But if you make those decisions based on data that you're seeing from your software or from your marketing, and you will see more meaningful growth, I should say. I shouldn't say you won't see growth, but the growth will be more meaningful if you're using data to make these changes within your company.
I like from your experience, if you walk into a company now, not now, tomorrow, because you already did it for Aardwork, what are the first 2, 3 things you look at in their operations? I'm sure you would say numbers, but what kind of numbers?
Yeah. Well, obviously, I've just been talking about data for a couple of minutes now. So numbers are important. But actually, before I get to the numbers, the first thing I really would look at is the staff as a whole, the people, right? Do the employees enjoy working there? Are expectations clear for the employees? How does the communication flow between the office staff and the technical staff? And that usually can tell you a lot right away, right? If people enjoy working for that company, that's a good sign, right? If the technicians feel comfortable calling the office staff and letting them know about a problem, that's good stuff. And then I would look at numbers, right? I would probably look at callback rate, service frequencies, just to see if there's a proactive approach to pest control or if there's more of a reactive approach, right? We really want to try to get that proactive approach down so that we aren't experiencing so much callback. And then I guess the final thing I would look at is the systems that the pest control company has in place, or any company, it doesn't even have to be a pest control company, and whether or not their systems are being used consistently, right? It's one thing to have a system in place, but is it being used or do you just have it there just to say you have a system,
At the beginning, you mentioned people. So the first thing you will look at people. So you have coach students, you have coach other teachers, and now I think you're also coaching your team, technician. So how do you approach developing, people in your company? How do you balance accountability with empathy? And, what kind of culture are you intentionally building at Aardwork?
In terms of coaching my team, I do look at my team as individuals. You have to meet people where they are, right? You can't expect the same from everybody, unfortunately. You can have expectations for everybody, but you do have to really meet the learner. And I'm calling them a learner because, again, my education background, but you have to meet the employee, the technician, the customer service rep where they are and provide them crucial feedback on something they can actually grow on, right? So, for Aardvark, really like coaching is ongoing, right? It's in our day-to-day conversations. What happened good yesterday? What happened maybe not so good yesterday? And how can we do that better tomorrow? And it's not always like a sit down and a formal paper. It is just open conversations with each other. And my team feels safe to come to me when they have something they, feel like didn't go so well and how can I improve that, which is awesome. And then I think you asked about accountability and empathy. And I don't necessarily view those two things as opposites. I feel like you really can hold an individual accountable and also be empathetic, right? So empathy, I would say, is about understanding the person or understanding the situation, making sure your team feels heard. Accountability is maintaining a standard, right? So for me, it's about being human in these conversations with my team, but also having clear expectations. I can understand what happened in a situation like this went bad, and I understand not everything's perfect, right? The account got angry because I accidentally marked the wrong place where I put traps, right? Okay. All right. You made a mistake. Let's figure out how we can fix this. But next time going forward, this is what we should do, right? So understanding the situation, but then also setting clear expectations. I feel like you can be really supportive of your team without lowering the bar or lowering the standard. And what was the third part? Culture, right?
Yeah, culture you are building at Aardwork.
Yeah. And so I feel like kind of to wrap everything up that I just said, and I really do feel like I'm following my dad's footsteps here. Aardvark really is a very people first culture, right? I love my employees like they're my family. And to be quite honest, half of them are my family. My sister works for us. I have 2 cousins that are technicians. So they are my family. And it's important to know that they are valued as people, not just my employees.
So you're a real locally owned family business.
We really are. We really are. Now, we have other team members that aren't technically family, but one of my oldest technicians, one of my lead technicians, 2 of his sons also work for us. So like when we say family business, it really is a family business. And that's kind of the culture we're building, a family, right? Where everyone feels safe and comfortable, but with clear expectations and high expectations as well.
Clear numbers also.
Yeah. Yes.
So you're wearing 3 big hats, okay? Leader, mother of 3, and a woman building her career. And how do you make that work without losing yourself in the process?
Ooh, that's a loaded question, Faye. I don't think I have the perfect recipe for that, right? I feel like I'm still trying to find that balance. And I think that's okay. For me, it's like really being intentional with my time and my energy. So if I'm at work, I'm spending my energy here at work, right? 100% focused on the task. And if I'm at home, that does require me to maybe shut off my cell phone for an hour or 2 or close my laptop for an hour or 2 and really be present with my family and my children. And I feel like that lesson was learned from my previous career, right? So I couldn't do that as much in education because, there's grading after school, there's contacting parents after school. And so there wasn't a clear line of like when work ended. And so that's why I felt like I could never fully be present as a mother for my children or as a wife for my husband. And I give myself a little bit more grace now and again, right? There are going to be times where, it's not perfect every day. Sometimes I'm, at my son's baseball game and I have my laptop because something has to get done. But I just feel like at the end of the day, I'm building a business that I'm proud of, also while being the kind of mom I want to be. And that really is what matters most to me.
So in the woman in this industry, what challenge have you personally experienced? Do you feel like the industry evolving for women? And where are we today?
So I feel like, again, this is a 2-part answer to me.
Okay.
I look around at events, at PMA events, and
Very
I feel
welcoming.
like, wow, very welcoming. Wow, like women are here. They're present. They're making a name for themselves. I see people like you, Faye, and there's Kendra Slater. She really pulled me in, and they're willing to support other women in this industry. And there's even men who come to our women's events at national level, right? Like,
yeah, like your father.
My dad always makes it a point to go to the women's
amazing
events.
Personality.
Yeah. So within the industry, I feel like it's evolving great for women, right? Within like our walls. But then I get out of our walls and I'm with my customers and my account. And it's crazy that sometimes I'll still show up for like, a monthly meeting, a check-in with a big account. They'll be like, oh, you're here for pest control? Oh, no, we're just surprised it's a woman. And it's like, why? Why is that such a surprise? So there's still a lot of work to do in terms of that, right? To get our customers to realize women are just as capable as men in terms of providing wonderful pest control for accounts.
And definitely,
right?
definitely.
Yeah.
You are definitely capable of doing, everything that men can do.
Yeah. And I know I've talked to, so I've never been a technician, right? And I've talked to women technician at some of our events, and I think they get it even more than, someone like operations person would get it or an owner would get it. They're like, oh, a woman technician, and that we got to get past that, right? We gotta. Women can do anything, people.
Exactly, and we don't need to mention that we can do it. Women can do anything. No,
Right. That shouldn't even need to be said anymore.
Yes. What would you say to a woman who is just entering pest control right now?
Oh man, I guess I would say really just don't be scared. Take the time to learn and ask questions. Stay curious. And I would say try to get comfortable with like all aspects of the business, right? I'm still perfecting my technical side. I'm actually right
Mhm.
now studying to get my license because that's something I want to achieve just so my team can see like I'm willing to put the
Mhm.
work in and know that part. But you just have to be willing to learn. That's all. Like it might feel scary, like we said, because it's a male dominated industry, but there are so many people, like we keep mentioning in NPMA itself, that are willing to mentor and to help women grow. So if you're willing to put the work in, there is a lot of opportunity in this field.
And I want to mention that because I'm not part of MPMA, Professional Women Pest Management Council. So you were selected as a 2025 PWIPM Professional Women in Pest Management Professional Empowerment Grant recipient. And what did that mean to you personally? And how are you planning to use this opportunity to grow both for yourself and your company?
Yeah. So receiving that grant was really meaningful to me, both personally and professionally. I think on a personal level, it felt like it helped me get over that hump of like, do I belong here? Is this something I should be doing? It really made me feel like, yeah, you're on the right track, which was great. And then, professionally, it just motivated me to keep going, but also it motivated me to pay it forward, right? Support other women in this community because I'm being supported by women in this community. It really was an honor and a reminder just to keep building on this momentum that I have going for Aardwork. And I am really looking forward to being really intentional about my growth this next year, especially using some of the funds from the grant that I received. I plan on using some of it to attend at least one more MPMA event because I do feel like I learn so much at these events, whether it's just through networking with other women or sitting through some of the educational sessions. I really appreciate and love attending the MPMA events. And then, from like personal standpoint, I really would like to maybe take some classes, some business classes, just to whether I'm learning to improve some systems or develop in our teams or making more strategic choices. I feel like taking a few business classes might help me push myself in that area.
I want to mention a little bit about this
Yes, please do.
grant. And for those listening, the PWIPN, Professional Women Pest Management Council, offers the Danny Norman Woman in Pest Management Empowerment Grant each year in honor of Danny Norman, who gave so much to this industry. And I'm sure most of our women listeners haven't heard about it. The grant is designed to support women in advancing their careers in pest management, whether that's, through education, professional development, or industry involvement. And it includes up to 1,000 in funding, a complimentary registration to Pest World, and additional support toward travel expenses. And applications will be opening soon, and recipients are typically announced by the end of July. So if you're thinking about it, this is definitely something to keep on your radar. And why do you think programs like this are so important for the future of your industry? Because you already have that experience.
Yeah. So I think a program like this, a grant like this is so important because it creates opportunities for women that they might not have had otherwise. So when you invest in a person, you strengthen our industry as a whole, right? So if we're offering these grants to women who want to be with us and want to be
Mhm.
part of our group, that's really benefiting our industry as a whole. We're developing better leaders and we're creating more opportunities for the next generation. And I feel like that's super important for the future.
Thank you. And for the future, so you are preparing to take over ownership. And what excites you the most about that? And what do you see Aardwork in the next 3 to 5 years?
Well, I actually did take over ownership. It became
January, right?
Yes, it became official as of January 1st. And I think what excites me the most about this is I really get to take a solid foundation that my dad built and layer in some of the strengths I have to grow this to be something a little bit bigger or maybe way bigger. I'm not sure yet, and growth isn't necessarily about getting bigger in terms of sales. Maybe it's about strengthening our operations or, growing my team and building a reputation that building on a reputation. I shouldn't say building our reputation because my dad has already laid down a solid reputation for us, but building on the reputation that's already been established. It's really unique though. I feel like I want to honor what's already been built, but also evolve and grow using my own strength. And sorry, I forgot the second part because
And the second part was easier than that.
Yeah.
So where do you see Aardwork in the next 3 to 5 years? I had a little bit of idea about it because we had some discussions.
Yeah. So I feel like in the next 3 to 5 years, I really would like to see growth, whether that's in our commercial presence or maybe eventually tapping into a residential presence. I'm not sure yet. And then also building a team that can support this growth while maintaining the level of service that we're known for. I really am focused on creating a more structure and making sure we grow the right way without losing what made us successful. So what I mean by that is I'm not really interested in sacrificing quality for short-term profit, right? Our reputation truly is our brand. I know we talked a little bit about this before, but we haven't done much marketing at all at Aardvark. And our growth has really come from our reputation. So I'm committed to keeping that reputation that my dad has worked so hard for, but also, yeah, exactly. And then pushing it forward and growing on that reputation.
So what kind of leader do you want to be known as? You have already talked about the people part at your company, so your involvement.
Yeah. So I think the type of leader I would like to be known as is, someone who's fair and consistent. And I also want to be known as someone who genuinely invests in her team. I want my team to feel like they are the most important part of our company because they are. Aardvark would not run without people who work here. I also want to be known as someone who sets clear expectations and maybe, who holds a high standard and who supports their team when it's time to grow and succeed. And I also want to be known, for my integrity and my reputation. At the end of the day, if my team feels respected, supported, and confident in the direction we're going, then I think I've done a pretty good job as a leader.
Who has had the biggest impact on your journey?
I don't think this is going to come as a surprise, but yeah, I would definitely say dad. Even I think it was hard for me to see this as a kid. Obviously, you don't understand how much work adults put into careers or jobs. And he built a business from ground up while being a single dad. My parents were divorced. So my dad was a single father and he built his business from the ground up. And I got to see that firsthand. And he showed up. Sometimes that meant taking an emergency call at 8 o'clock at night. He would get us to bed. He would have my cousin or somebody come over and babysit and he'd go answer that call, right? Because his reputation meant a lot to him. And he was working on the rapport and the relationships with our accounts. So even before I joined Aardvark, I saw those values in my dad. And now being part of the business, I get to follow in his footsteps, right? And I just have a whole new level of respect for how he built this. And I'm really fortunate to learn from him and to have him by my side in the beginning phases of this journey.
And what keeps you going on the hard days?
I guess I would say on the hard days, it's definitely my family, my children and my husband. On really hard days, I have to remind myself, why I transitioned to this career to begin with. And it really was to be more present as a mom and be more present as a wife. So definitely my family first, but my team also keeps me going, right? Like I keep saying, and I mentioned it a few times, our small business is a family business and my team relies on this business to keep going, right? My team relies on us to keep having money come in so I can pay them. So people are counting on me and I need to stay focused on moving this business forward. At the end of the day, I kind of try to just zoom out and I know that there's challenges, right? But all the challenges are part of a bigger picture and that's kind of what helps push me through.
If you could go back and talk to yourself at the beginning of this journey, what would you say?
I guess I would tell myself that I do have something valuable to offer, both to the company and to the industry. I think I would tell 5 years ago, Alyssia, that your strengths are actually going to complement what your dad has already built pretty well. Like I said, he's always been the technical guy, the relationships guy. And I'm more of like the data, the operations, the structure. And together, it really kind of melts it well together. And I'll also remind myself, I think, that you don't really have to prove anything to anybody. If you just stay focused and hungry to learn, you're going to make an impact. And, it might take time, but it'll happen.
One last question. If someone listening today feels like they're not ready yet, not experienced enough, not confident enough, but they know they're meant for more, what would you tell them?
That's my first thing I would tell them is anybody really ready for anything? Does anybody ever feel 100% ready to do anything? I don't think so, right?
No.
No, like even today, I kept emailing you with 100 questions. I was a little bit nervous for this. I was like, what if I say something really dumb? Or what if I sound like I don't know what I'm talking about, right?
Why are we so afraid of making mistakes?
Right. That's where you grow. That is where you grow as an individual. You have to make mistakes. You have to put yourself in uncomfortable situations to grow. So I think a lot of growth happens when you step into something before you're ready, honestly. And just be confident, right? Just, the saying, fake it till you make it. Fake it till you make it.
Yes.
Yeah. Everyone is meant for more. I think every human on this earth can do more. It's just some people decide not to because they're too nervous to take that leap of faith. So you don't have to have it all figured out. Just get started. And
it doesn't have to be perfect at the beginning.
It doesn't.
And we shouldn't be so afraid of making mistakes, I guess. Yeah.
No, you're right. Yep.
And Alyssia, thank you so much for sharing your story. I think a lot of people will see themselves in your journey. Thank you very much. It was an amazing conversation.
Thank you so much, Faye. It was truly an honor to be here with you today. And I can't wait to see you around soon.
Yeah, me too. Thank you.